All right, greetings, heroes. It is I, your friendly neighborhood Rabbi Heroes, sorry, hold on, I'm rocking out too loud. Let me turn the music down a little bit. That's not the one I want to turn down. How do I turn this music down? Turn it down. Let's turn it off. I'm just going to turn that off so we just talk to each other freely. It is I, your friendly neighborhood Rabbi John Carrier. I'm pleased to join you once again for Fun Friday here on the Jewcurious Show. It's about the only fun we have is fun. No, I'm going to say that's about the only show we have is a fun show. So I see Triggers and Viv here. Says Shabbat Shalom, Boker Tov, Boker or Triggers and Viv. Good to see you. Let's see, turn the music off. Just doing a little stuff in the control room here. That's good radio. So hey, guys and guyettes and people of all genders, I'm super excited to have you here. I'm sort of trying to correct this speech pattern of myself where I say guys when I know that not everybody identifies as a guy. So please have patience with me as I try to exorcise this from my vocabulary. I refuse to give up y'all. However, that is the second person plural pronoun of my yichus, of my provenance, and that's you pry y'all out of my cold dead grammarian hands. So in any case, super excited to learn with you today. In a minute, we're going to start talking about free will in Judaism and a particular lesson on that we get from this week's Parsha, Parshat Va'era. It's the second Torah reading of Shemot, and we'll get on that in just a second. And so glad to see Nawa64 here. Shalom. And let's see, and we're going to play some video games here. That's what we do on Fun Friday. You tune into this show. You can ask whatever questions you like about Judaism. Like, keep it nice, keep it clean, keep it pleasant. This is, I have to say, one of the most wonderful online communities that I've ever been a part of in terms of how kind people are to each other. So we're going to maintain that in a draconian fashion. So if anybody feels like being unkind or being uncouth, I did just broadcast that we're about to go live to Twitter. So you never know when you put your toe in the Twitter water what diseases you're going to catch from the people on Twitter. So I don't like talking badly about people, but I will freely talk badly about Twitter. That place is a cesspool. There is a lot of good Torah being taught on Twitter. There's a lot of good friendships and important issues being discussed. But more likely as not, I'm like, ugh, why do I still have this on my phone? In any case, so glad that you are here. If you love Twitter, I don't judge you. It's great for many people. For me, it's trying sometimes. But let's keep it positive. We're going to learn a little something about Judaism today. Whatever questions you have, I see Drake Clark is in the house. Really highly recommend that people just ask questions. And I see question marks right away. And then that's the other thing I was going to say. If you have a question, It's really cool if you put a question mark next to it. Even if it's in Spanish, use an upside down question mark. And then give me a minute to go on Google Translate, because I studied Spanish in high school, but that's about it. So I've got a great question already. Triggers and Viv asks, is there a difference between Chabad and a shul? So yes, there's sort of apples and oranges a little bit. I use the word shul a lot just because that's what I got accustomed to calling a synagogue. A shul is a Yiddish word from the German Schule, which means school, and but it's also what people in certain Jewish communities just call the synagogue, because the synagogue is a place of learning, kind of like a schoolhouse. And so when I refer to, some people say I'm going to go to temple, or I'm going to go to the synagogue, or I'm going to go to services, I always say it's time to go to shul. And so a shul is like a place. It's like a building, right? Chabad is a movement or a denomination within a denomination within Judaism, if you will. Chabad is one of the different dynasties of the Hasidic movement that's about 200-300 years old at this point. So Chabad's been around for a while, and Chabad is a particular family branch, subset, whatever you want to call it, of Hasidic or Haredi, which are not the same thing, Judaism, that has a kind of missionary zeal to it. They're more active in outreach than other branches of the Hasidic movement. But Chabad is a particular organization that has a particular approach to Judaism. Part of their approach includes outreach. So Chabad is like conservative Judaism, or not. Let me take that back. I don't think either conservative Judaism or Chabad would cop to that, but it's the kind of thing that conservative Judaism is. It's a particular branch that has particular people who agree on certain things, and a number of locations and franchises around the world, many of which are shuls. So if you say, I'm going to shul, somebody say, what kind of shul are you going to? And you say, I'm going to a Chabad shul. So it is certainly, I think Orthodox would be a safe bet to say, is it more Orthodox? If you think of the range of Reform, Conservative, Orthodox, and then within Orthodoxy, there's sort of modern Orthodox, there's less modern Orthodox, there's Hasidic Judaism, which considers itself Orthodox, kind of like how would I put this? Kind of like the Amish consider themselves Christian in a way. It's not. There's some similarities, some not, but it's it's a particular branch within Orthodoxy that adheres to a very fundamentalist concept of Judaism, and to the point of, the men dress a certain way, the women dress a certain way. They have a certain approach to Jewish law and Jewish practice, and they differ from other Orthodox groups in their, let's say, zeal of outreach to fellow Jews who they want to help do mitzvot as they see the mitzvot. So Orthodox is an understatement, but again, I don't like to knock Chabad. Some people do. I don't, because I have respect for the Rebbe's vision and what he wanted to do in the world. I have respect for many individual Chabad rabbis who I've met and have even worked with from time to time. It's not my flavor of Judaism, and I do work with a lot of students who say started at Chabad, found it wasn't for them, and then come to me and I say, well, this is a Jewish perspective, and they're like, that's not what Chabad said. I'm like, can't help you with what Chabad said. This is another perspective. So we differ on a lot of things, but I have respect for their work and many individual rabbis. So we got Yermalowitz is in the house. Hello, everyone. So glad to be back home and join the Fun Friday. Finally, very good. Now 64. Yes, much more Orthodox. Some lean more Haredi. Haredi. That's another kind of word I threw out a minute ago. Haredi means trembling ones, like the Haredim are the ones who tremble in fervor before the Holy One, which sort of includes a lot of kind of neo-Hasidic movements. Haredi Judaism, while it feels connected to traditional Judaism as it sees Judaism going back hundreds of years, Haredi Judaism is historically a 20th century phenomenon, largely. This was a kind of a counter-revolutionary move where the Orthodox reaction to reform wasn't reactionary enough, And in the 20th century, many groups started professing a kind of fundamentalist Judaism, which, fundamentalism is a 20th century, I was going to say disease, but maybe phenomenon is a kinder word. And it's not just in Judaism. Every religion has their fundamentalists. So do we, and they're usually the Haredim. I don't know if that Chabad would call themselves a Haredi movement. Sometimes, it looks like that. Noah 64 says, we really like our local Chabad rabbi, but a bit too orthodox for weekly services for us. Great and free holiday celebrations that are very welcoming. So that's something they're very good at, is welcoming holiday celebrations, and they desperately want to help Jews do mitzvahs. Like quick story. I was in New York a few weeks ago at a conference, and I was talking to a fellow person who had become Jewish as an adult. Let's say I've been Jewish about 20 years now, but I was not born to this. This is. And so I was talking to him, and we were talking about Chabad, and I said, you know what, Chabad, I've never had somebody from Chabad approach me and say, have you put on tefillin today, or would you like to do a mitzvah? This is something that Chabad's somewhat famous for, is you could be walking down the street, and they'll come over to you and say, would you like some Shabbos candles, or have you put on tefillin today? Would you like to put on tefillin today? And I said, this has literally never happened to me. And I'm going to use a little Yiddish here. I think it's because of my goyish apunim, I have, which is Yiddish for Gentile face. So I don't like promoting stereotypes, but if there was a stereotypical look for a Jew, it's not always me. And so I've never been approached by Chabad, and I was sort of like proud / complaining to him, like, am I not good enough to put on tefillin? What's going on here? And so I said, yes, that's just a thing. I've never, in 20 years of being Jewish, I've never had Chabad approach me to do a mitzvah. And then that night, which happened to be Christmas Eve, I'm walking through the village. I'm walking through, I think it was like New York, the NYU neighborhood, about 14th Street, right? I was on my way to do something. I forget. I was going to the Strand bookstore, then I went to a movie, then I met up with a friend. But I'm walking down 14th Street, and in one block, no less than 3 Chabad Lubavitcher people approached me, offering me a menorah, like asking me, "Have you lit a menorah yet tonight?" And I was like, I had a, I probably had a keep on, but I think I was probably wearing a baseball hat over it because it was like slightly cold. But it's like it never happened to me before. And then one night, 3 times in one block, it happened, and they came up to me, was like, "Have you lit the menorah yet tonight?" And I said, thank you. Yes, I have. I was at this conference and we lit the menorah before we left and celebrated Hanukkah there. I was like, please say, I lit a menorah tonight. Please save that for somebody who needs it. But thank you so much for asking. And so I felt pretty good about that. And well, good / bad in the sense that, like one of the times it was like a super old man. The other time it was a young child, and then in between it was like a young guy, 20s, 30s, 40s. I can't tell. He had a big beard, but he like crossed the sidewalk and like nearly knocked over 2 people to get to me. Like he's just like, that guy looks like a Jew, and he's like, phew, and almost like bowled over these 2 Asian women who were just minding their own business to get to me to ask me if I'd lit a menorah. So I guess that's my Chabad breakthrough, as it were. I do feel loved. I do feel seen. Thank you. But it just so happened I already lit a menorah that night. So I went off and I went to the Strand bookstore. Then I watched The Joker, and then I met up with an old friend from college, and we had a great time catching up. So. Good to see you, Triggers of If. Thanks for coming in. We're going to have a little bit of a shorter show today. We're trying to keep it to about an hour. I've got some Rabbi stuff to do. Got to prepare for services tonight. Got to take my daughter to a bus to go on a youth group retreat, Jewish youth group retreat. It's her first one. I'm really excited for it. Just going to a Jewish camp for the weekend for Friday night and Saturday night, and it's her first one of these. I'm really excited for her. I think she's going to have a great time. So I'm going to say good Shabbos to Trig. Thanks for showing up. Thanks for being the first one in the chat. If you are new here, just know that this is about the nicest community you can ask your questions in. So if you have questions about Judaism, about Jewish traditions, Jewish people, Jewish food, Jewish movies. Last time we talked about A Serious Man, somebody was asking me, hey, have you ever seen A Serious Man? I'm like, have I? My sons were extras in that movie because it was filmed on location where I lived, which is where the Coen brothers grew up. So if you have questions about Jewish movies, Jewish books, what have you, we're here for you. In the meantime, I'm going to say a few words about Judaism and free will. So we talk about this all the time because it's actually a very important, and just purely selfish, very important concept to me within Judaism is this idea of free will. In the story of that first, fateful apple bite in Gan Eden, where God says, "Okay, you can have any fruit of, any fruit of grasses or whatever in the garden. You can eat those." Adam, Harishon, Bachava, Adam and Eve, any fruit except like the fruit from the tree in the middle of the garden. And what do? Immediately, they eat the fruit. And the fruit happens to be a fruit that bestows upon them the knowledge of good and evil, right? Between, tov and ra, like good and bad, pleasant and wicked. Sometimes I think of it as like unselfish and selfish is another translation I have for that. They take this bite immediately and they're like, and God's like, oh no, now they have free will, right? Now they know right from wrong. And once you know right from wrong, you know you have options, and you know you have the freedom to choose between those things, and you get the consequences for the good and you get the consequences for the bad. And so whereas in other monotheistic faiths, I'm looking at you, Christianity, and I'm not trying to be mean about it, whereas that biting of the apple, that disobedience to God, is seen as a kind of this original sin, this fall from grace, right? This permanent stain on humanity that can only be redeemed vicariously through a connection to their view of the Messiah. It's considered this horrible sin. For us, while there are rabbinic commentaries that say, probably shouldn't have done that, for the most part, it's seen as the genesis, pardon the pun, of free will. God gave us this gift, right? Because ever since then, we've had a kind of A, moral intuition, and B, moral responsibility, but C, a kind of freedom of action, right? That God gave to us from, I was going to say from the very beginning, but let's say the very beginning plus like an hour or two, like from the beginning of humanity, which is just the sixth day of creation, so it's not exactly the beginning, but from like the sixth day of creation, and then probably Shabbos, so let's say the eighth day, I think, is when this happened. For breakfast, maybe they had a bite of the apple, and or dinner, as the case may be, because the eighth day started at nighttime. But I digest. They took a bite of the apple really early on in the genesis of the world, and from that point on, we were not puppets. We were not automatons. Like, we were free beings to make our own decisions, and that is the gift of free will. And I forget if it was Maimonides or Rabbi Akiva who said, everything is in the hands of heaven except the fear of heaven. Right, the God, from this view, sort of controls everything except how people respond to God. Right, except how people respond. God is sort of orchestrates the universe, but does not control human behavior. Human behavior is only governed by people's regard for the divine and whether they want to walk the path with the divine or not. So free will is a very strong component of, I'm going to say, classical Jewish belief. And this is very liberating for some people who rebel at the idea of, I was an unredeemable sinner when I was born, before I did anything wrong. And babies that aren't baptized don't get to go to heaven. That's unfortunate, but that's how it is. People rebel at this idea. Can I choose my own behavior? Can I choose whether I'm redeemed or unredeemed? And do I have to believe the exact thing that you want me to believe to be redeemed? No, you have free will. You have consequences for that. You are required to make tshuva, to repent for things you did wrong, and not just to make it right with God, but also make it right with other people. But you have free will. Now, what complicates this is Parashat Va'era. And Parashat Va'era, we have it's the second weekly reading cycle in the book of Exodus, and it's where we start to see the plagues that God inflicted upon Egypt when Pharaoh refused to be nice to our people. And so we got the first 7 of the 10 plagues in Va'era, and what happens is there's a lot of heart hardening going on, and made a YouTube video about this for my congregation that I'm hoping to get out today as well. So you get the short version on YouTube later. But what happens is in the first, say, 5 plagues, it says that Pharaoh Pharaoh saw the plight of the Jewish people, saw this plague impact his own people, but then hardened his heart and refused to let the people go. Actually, in the first 3 plagues, it's sort of in the passive voice. Pharaoh's heart was hardened. It doesn't say by whom. In plagues 4 and 5, it says that Pharaoh hardened his heart. I think it used the word yikbad lebo, like he strengthened or weighted his heart so that he wouldn't acquiesce. And then in the 6th plague, like I think the 5th plague was like the livestock plague. I think it was like anthrax or something. So in the 6th plague, it's boils. Like Moses and Aaron Moses takes a handful of dust and throws it up in the air, and it proliferates, and then everybody gets boils. Ew. And just boils. But then what it says is that God, I think he used the word yizchok. God strengthened or hardened Pharaoh's heart so that Pharaoh would not relent. And then I think in the I want to say 7th plague, it's a passive voice again. Pharaoh's heart was hardened. But then plagues 8 through 10, it says God hardened Pharaoh's heart. And this is somewhat problematic for proponents of free will. They're saying, how could God do that and take away Pharaoh's choice, right? We're all about free will. We're all about human responsibility for human decisions. But it's clear that God did that to Pharaoh and robbed him of the ability to change his mind. What Maimonides says is that this is sort of an abject lesson for us, or abject lesson? It was a lesson. I'll work on my diction later. That if you don't take the opportunities that you have to exercise your free will responsibly, eventually you may run out of chances. Right? Eventually you may come to a point of no return where you can't make up for those things anymore. Right? People are just going to stop listening to you, and then you're going to have to suffer further consequences. You might want to repent. You've got 5 plays to go, dude. But you missed your chance. And so this apparent, let's say, denial of free will to Pharaoh, isn't there to completely abnegate free will. It's there to teach us, look, yes, you have free will. You get a lot of chances in this world, but you don't get infinite chances. And sometimes, if you don't take the chances that you have, you don't get to choose what happens after that. And I think many of us probably have experiences of that in our own life. We could have changed our minds. We could have made amends. We didn't take the opportunities that we had, and then it was too late to mend that relationship with somebody. So that is kind of the lesson on Judaism and free will today. A, yes, we have it. B, we need to use it responsibly, because if we don't use it, we lose it. Shnei Amar, the Steve Carell and the 40-Year-Old Virgin. So with that, let's get on to Fun Friday. Please feel free to continue to ask your questions. I'm going to check the multi-chat here. I've only been looking at the Twitch chat so far, but let's see what we got going on YouTube and Facebook so I don't miss anything. Esther DeVelda says, hello, Esther DeVelda, good to see you here. Grace Sorensen, seeing some new faces, I think. I don't know if I've seen Grace before, but I'm really glad to see you here. Shalom from Salt Lake City, Utah. We've got Utah in the house. Esther DeVelda, shalom from the Netherlands. All right, we are international, y'all. Nice to see you here. Let's see, we got any Facebookers on the line? I see Twitch. I see YouTube. Got Dakota Black, type it in Hebrew. Boker Tov, Boker or Dakota Black. Dakota Black says, I have class, so I can't stay long. I have class too, and I'm going to stay here. I'm just kidding. So I appreciate that. Whenever you can join us, we're happy to have you. Do you know where I can find a good Yiddish learning resource? I do not. My primary Yiddish learning resource is hanging out with old people. And I think, is that ageist to say old people, people of age? I don't know, but I've learned the most Yiddish from hanging out with people older than myself who maybe grew up either speaking or hearing Yiddish, and I picked up a little bit along the way. Sometimes older people ask me if I know Yiddish, and my response is usually nothing clean. Because I've mostly heard people speak Yiddish when they were upset or criticizing something, and that's where the epithets come out. There are no curses like Yiddish curses, I'll say that, but there's also great holiness in Yiddish as well. So my resource has been hanging out with older Jewish people, and trying some of the words they use and then getting corrected on my pronunciation. But that's been very productive. It's also really cool to hang out with old people. I have to say, if you don't hang out with a lot of old people, you should start. I made this observation a few weeks ago. I used to think that rabbis were wise because they studied a lot of Torah, and that can also be true. But now I realize that rabbis are mostly wise because in our profession we get to hang out with a lot of people who are way older than us. Just by visiting, being in a congregation of diverse ages, visiting people at home who are sick or don't, drive anymore. And so I have way more friends in their 90s than I ever thought I would have before I became a rabbi. And that's been actually such a blessing in my life. And just like to gain wisdom from folks like that has been wonderful to me. Oldies but goodies, says Kathy. Good to see you here, Kathy. Waking up in California. Good morning, y'all. Diwalexin Boker Tov. Boker Tov, Diwalexin. Good to see the Colorado clan here today. I've been doing a little research for us, so this is a little private talk. Colorado clan, been doing a little bit of research for you. Might have a lodging solution. Still waiting on a let's say a witness solution for you. So we'll talk more about that hopefully later today. So good to see everybody. Let's go ahead and play a little Zelda. So I'm going to keep the multi-chat going over here, so I can see some folks. Whether you're joining us on Facebook or YouTube or Twitch, you are more than welcome here. Ask whatever questions you want, just so you know where I'm coming from. The Jewcurious Show is for Jew-curious people. That's true. That's if you're Jewish, if you are not Jewish but you're curious about it. Maybe you're on the path to conversion. A lot of my students are. And wherever you are, maybe you're not remotely interested in conversion and you're not Jewish, but you're curious about Jewish stuff. Maybe it's sort of, there's some Hebrew roots in your own faith that you want to explore and understand better. You are more than welcome to ask those questions here. Really happy to have you. I do this because, I kind of figured out, a couple of years ago, I sort of figured out my credo. I figured out, okay, what is my rabbinate about? Like, why do I do this? And I do this because I fully believe that everyone, everywhere, is looking for or would benefit from a life of greater meaning. I think a lot of people are searching for meaning from all sorts of different backgrounds. I believe that people everywhere are looking for more joy in their life. I believe that everyone everywhere benefits from greater human connection. And I think people of all backgrounds and places are seeking a life of growth, a life of personal growth, or spiritual growth, or what have you. So between this human drive for meaning, joy, connection with other humans, personal growth, I fully believe that Jewish traditions, the Jewish people, Jewish wisdom can promote all of those things, and I believe that it should be accessible to everyone everywhere. And that's why I do the teaching I do online. And so I'm delighted to learn with you guys today, and that's kind of the premise of the Jewcurious Show. If you're looking for a life of greater meaning, joy, human connection, personal growth, we are here for you. So let's see. Ezra Saville says, what about Hashgacha Pratis, divine providence in Judaism? How does that interact with free will? So that's one of the greatest questions of all time. So there is this notion of divine providence that, and again, Maimonides and Akiva both unpack this a little bit. It's like God knows the outcome of everything, but doesn't necessarily control the outcome of everything. And that's hard. That gets into like deep beyond Judaism, deep philosophical discussions of free will. If you know what's going to happen, does that mean that you control what's going to happen? Right? Knowing that a person will make a certain decision, does that mean that you have control over that person making that decision. And it's a little bit like, as one person explained, it's a little bit like time travel or like or hindsight. Like if you if you are if you time travel into the future and you read about what somebody did in the interim, so you know they were going to do that thing, does that mean that you controlled that action? And so there is a notion that God sort of sets everything up, but when it comes to human beings, and some would say exclusively human beings, God doesn't pick what that human being is going to do in the moment. God just sort of sets up the conditions and lets us kind of figure those things out. Actually gives us a lot of help. Here's a Torah. Here's a guide to do the right thing. Here's the knowledge of good and evil. And so, like I said, this notion from, I believe it was Akiva who said, everything is in the hands of heaven. That's the hashgacha pratit, the divine providence, except Yirat Shamayim, except the fear of heaven itself, except God doesn't tell us to believe in God. God doesn't God highly suggests that we believe in God and follow this path that we've been given, but the choice is ours. And so it feels like a little bit of a paradox, but that's the tension that we wrestle with. So Dakota Black says, I wish I could. I live outside any Jewish communities, pretty lonely. Yiddish is one of my favorite languages. Some of the words are cute and apropos. I will say, I would say Google it. I don't like to just dump everything on Google, because there's a lot of garbage that you're going to find on Google. But these days you can find a lot of good resources, and I bet you probably even find some like Yiddish 101 YouTube channels or something. Start with Wikipedia. I know Wikipedia, people are down on it because there's some garbage on there, and you can't use it for school term papers and things. But you can get what I find, you can get clues. Like you can get clues to the right thing. So often I'll start with Wikipedia if I'm looking for something on any given topic, whether it's kashrut or TV VCR repair. I don't know, what have you. Maybe I wouldn't sort of take it at face value as the only source, but it will usually point you to other resources, and then do your research from there. And then you can probably find YouTube videos. Look at My Jewish Learning, might have something on Yiddish. I know a couple of people. One person that I know for sure is sort of a Yiddish scholar and musicologist who is doing like a PhD dissertation on Yiddish. So there are more and more Yiddish resources out there. Something funny happened in New York. I wasn't present for this, but I heard about it. The week that I was in New York, there was also like a Yiddish music concert, and a lot of the people who were at the music conference that I was at went to that concert. But it was a person. There was an older person, older than me anyway, went to this to the Yiddish music concert. I'm going to guess she was probably, I'll say, 60 or over, and she went to this conference and was shocked that there was a bunch of kids in like their young 20s were there, and they were dancing and they were grooving out. They looked like they were at a fish show or something, just really into it. So maybe between 20 and 60 there's less interest, but there is this sort of Yiddish revival that's going on, that's put more and more resources out there, and I'm going to guess more and more resources online as well. So that would be my suggestion. Ezra Zaville says there's also classes online for cost, and Yiddish POP, which is a free website. Nice, very cool. So this is what I love about this community. Even when I don't have the answers, which is frequently, people will chime in and share what they have. So we're going to go for about another half an hour right now, in which case I want to introduce you to my friend Link. So let's switch over to little Zelda Mamilda. I just made that up. His name's not Zelda. Zelda! The Legends of Zelda, Breath of the Wild. I've actually gotten really excited about this game. We started playing it last week. Let's see. Deolexin has we got some more observations on free will, which I'll commend to your attention. Lagud, very good. What does a rabbi do? How do you become a rabbi? Also, hi everybody. Welcome, Lagud. I don't know if I've seen you here before, but I'm really glad you're here. So what does a rabbi do? A rabbi is basically a teacher who's sort of like a certified teacher, if you will. Rabbi, it was somebody will point out in the Hebrew, means Rav means master, Ravi or Rabbi, which is a kind of is a possessive enclitic ending, meaning rabbi means my master or my teacher. Lately, it's become sort of a job title of clergy. But what a rabbi is, I mean, we're not priests in like the Catholic sense, or even in the uh, kahuna sense of like the priests that did sacrifices in the temple. We are, for the most part, scholars who have spent some focused time studying Torah, studying commentaries and Midrash and Talmud and things like that, to the point where our teachers sort of declare that we are now fit to teach other people about Judaism. That doesn't come with any magic powers. That doesn't come with any kind of intercessory power. Like if I say the blessing over a cup of wine for Shabbat, that wine has no more significance than if any other adult Jew says the same blessing over the same cup. So I'd just like to dispel that. Like what rabbis aren't is magic. Like what rabbis aren't is priests in like the Catholic sense, where you need a priest to do certain mitzvahs, to keep certain sacraments. Basically, we're just educated teachers of Torah. That's one of my rabbis said. A rabbi is a master teacher of Torah. V'zehu. I mean that's it. And that's a lot. I mean, it means that I've studied a little bit more than most people I know about Judaism. And so now, having gained that knowledge, I feel obligated and joyful to pay it forward, to share with other people, because that's what my rabbis did for me. So that's what a rabbi is. That's what a rabbi does. How do you become a rabbi? Practice. That's the old Carnegie Hall joke. I think, how do you become a rabbi? There are various schools that you could go to, or various learning programs. Sometimes I know people who became rabbis by studying with a single teacher, and studied the material that the teacher wanted them, and then that teacher, put hands on them and declared, "You are now a rabbi." But I also know the people who did it like I did it, which was let's say 5 years of grad school, and for some people 6, for some people 7. I had kids already, so I had opportunity costs. I couldn't stay in there that long, so I crammed all my learning into 5 years. And some people do it in 5, some people do it in 10, some people do it in 3, some people do it when they're in high school, right? If you're in certain communities where you don't study a lot of secular subjects, you just spend your whole life in the yeshiva studying Torah, you can be a rabbi when you're, 20, 25 years old. In the conservative movement, it's more like grad school. It's like 5 years plus of graduate school, full-time school, and at the end of it, you're considered fit to teach, at least within the conservative movement. And the Reform movement is very similar. I think it's also 5 years. There's some schools that are 3 or 4. It just really depends on, find the school that fits the approach that you are drawn to, that fits the standards of the community that you want to teach in, and work the program. And then at the end of the program, you are certified to teach in that community. Like I had said, I wanted to be a rabbi. I'd only really known conservative Judaism to that point, and I actually had one of the admissions rabbis, one of the deans of the school, said, "Okay, are you sure you want to be a conservative rabbi? What about a Reform rabbi or an Orthodox rabbi? Like, look at all the different things. It's a big decision. Make sure you pick the right one." So I looked at the different movements. I thought, okay, no, this is me. This is the community that I want to be a part of. This is the community I want to teach in. So I only applied to conservative rabbinical schools. And in America, there are 2. There's a Ziegler School of Rabbinic Studies and Jewish Theological Seminary. Applied to both, got into both. I'm not trying to brag, but it was, just to say, it was a very hard decision. I chose the Ziegler School of Rabbinic Studies. One of the top 5 choices I've ever made in my life. The other 2 were my marriages, and the decision to have kids. Like, those were great. Going to rabbinical school and going to the rabbinical school that I went to, top notch. Like, I do not regret those decisions. So what I would do, if you're interested in becoming one, is talk to your rabbi, right? If you have an inclination to become a rabbi, you probably have a rabbi in your life, and talk to them. Talk to somebody who knows you, and they'll give you more clear instructions that will suit your purposes. So, so we have a discussion about the cyclical nature of time. K.G. Wilcox, maybe knowing equals determining only if time is linear. If it's more like a massive spaghetti, timey-wimey, then maybe causality is weaker. We are getting a little bit beyond my ken here, I'll say. D. Lexon, well, unless I'm misinformed, it is within Jewish theology that time is in fact cyclical, mainly that history repeats itself. Hey, Rabbi, is time cyclical? So I'm going to refer you to my other show, the Jewcurious Show. I wish I could tell you. The one of my teachers said, that almost the worst thing you could do is start any sentence with the phrase Judaism says, like Judaism says time is cyclical. Judaism says time is linear, because over the course of, let's say, roughly 4,000 years of identifying as Jewish and studying that path, and then a couple of thousand years within there of heated debates about things as recorded in the Mishnah and the Talmud. At some point, Judaism has said just about everything about just about everything. And so there will be views in there that says no, time is linear, time is cyclical. I'm partial to Rabbi Artsen's kind of process theology, which comes out of process philosophy, which means that time is constantly unfolding. There's no timeline where we're in the middle of it looking back and there's a certain future in front of us. Rather, you can see us as like we're like an arrow flying along a path, right? There, like whatever's before us is completely non-existent, irrelevant, what have you. We do sort of have this trail of memory, but the future is constantly being created by complex interactions, including interactions with the Holy One. And so by this theology, even God is sort of constantly unfolding. This kind of bucks the trend of classical Aristotelian thinking, which has informed much of monotheistic theology, including parts of Jewish theology that Rambam was really big on. Certainly Christianity kind of follows this notion of an Aristotelian God of as Rabbi Artsen calls it, the God of the omnis, like all powerful, all good, all knowing, da 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 da. Whereas, if you look in, I think I haven't read the book, but I've heard a lot about his theology because he was my dean for 5 years. That this notion of the God of the omnis is not native to the Torah, right? If you look at the Torah, it never talks about God as being infinitely anything. It just says God is super powerful, super knowing, super good, way more than me. But this idea of God being infinite in all directions, in all dimensions, is something that Aristotle invented to make his system of physics work. Right? It's an adjustment to the model. It's like, okay, if this physics is going to work the way I want it to, we need to have a first cause that is infinitely infinite, in all sorts of different dimensions. And Aristotle didn't even spend most of his time on that. He's like, all right, posit first cause, infinite in all directions, perfect, unchanging, and the rest of my logic and physics works out from there. And people glommed onto this idea at their peril, right? This idea, it created for us theodicy. It created the problem of evil, right? It said, if God is all-powerful, all-knowing, and all-good, how do you explain things like the Shoah? How do you explain things like terminal pediatric cancer, right? How do you explain why bad things happen to good people and vice versa? And if you dispense with the notion that God is all-powerful, all-good, and all-knowing, and doesn't do anything about the things that you have a problem with, suddenly you're freed of this notion of let's say, the cruelty of God. Really well articulated. This is a book I've recommended before. I'll recommend it again. Sarah Hurwitz, Here All Along. This is a relatively new book. It came out in the last year or two, where it's a very accomplished young person, highly intellectual, went to all the right schools, very successful in her career as the head speechwriter for Michelle Obama and working in the Obama administration, sort of came back to her Judaism as an adult and did some very intentional study, and then wrote an incredible book sort of explaining things like things to her intellectual peers. And from her, I learned something I didn't read in his. I've read one of his books. I think it was Harold Kushner. To Life is a great resource for people just learning about Judaism. Another book, When Bad Things Happen to Good People, is another great resource. She's talking about a teaching. I believe it's one of Rabbi Kushner's teachings that, if God is, we have a problem with God being all powerful, all good, and all knowing when we face things like a child with a terminal illness, right? Why would a God with these features allow something like that to happen when it could be stopped? And what Rabbi Kushner teaches is that, people are afraid of giving up on that infinity because any God that's not all powerful, all knowing, on good seems like a weakling. And what Rabbi Kushner teaches, I believe, is what is sort of third hand. There are worse things to be than a weakling. For example, a child murderer, right? If you believe that a God could do something about it and doesn't, then that makes your God a murderer. But if you believe that God is one who created a world of free will, created humanity out of matter, and matter by its nature breaks down and disappoints us sometimes, but then also teaches us to care for each other in those moments, that's the God that I believe in. I didn't know we were going to get into personal theology, but that's where we are. So when we get into this thing of of linear time and cyclical time, yes, there is cyclical time within Judaism. We revisit leaving Egypt every year in Pesach. Our holiday cycle is this ever-turning rehearsal of our past so that we can better operate in our future, is if I can sum it up very quickly. But that's assuming that we have a future, right? We relive our past in a cyclical fashion so that we are wiser in meeting the road that we're on. So that's my thought on that. Speaker AJ, let's see. Novice 64 said, I thought time was more spherical from the creator's perspective. Again, this is sort of beyond me. I can give a few Jewish perspectives on this. Still trying to figure it out. Time, I think, is illusory in that it eludes us, not illusory in that it's an illusion, but it might also be that. So interesting thoughts. I'm not convinced it's possible. This is Speaker AJ talking. Not convinced it's possible to be all powerful and all knowing, because someone who is all knowing cannot really have free will because they will already know what they are going to do. For that reason, I think God is super powerful, super knowing. I think a really great example of this is the flood, right? At the end of wiping out most of humanity, God changes God's mind. God regrets doing this, and God says, I'm never going to do this again. Now, you could probably make the case that God decided, okay, I'm going to do this once and never again, and then later on says, but there's places in the Torah which says God regrets a decision, right? And how could a perfectly perfect infinite being regret something or change their mind? Because if something is infinite, it cannot change, right? That change implies that there's some decision set, some probability that wasn't there before and now is, and that kind of spoils the whole hyper infinity argument. So with that, thank you for having. I never know what we're going to talk about when Kimberly. Last time we were talking about movies. Sometimes we talk about how to get to fill in. Today we're talking about the linear or circular or spherical nature of time, and Aristotelian theology versus process theology. So I'm glad I have a smart bunch to kind of share this stuff with. So I'm going to take a little drink of the Move Juice. Got a special cocktail this morning that I prepared. Don't get mad. It's not actually alcoholic. It's let's see what I got in there. I got coconut milk. Let's put it on camera. I got coconut milk and coffee and a fair amount of caprylic acid, which is a very refined coconut oil, and some protein powder, and a little dash of cocoa powder for heart health. And there we go. So we have It's Nodi says, hello, how are you doing? Good to see you here. It's Nodi. All right, let's play a little bit of Zelda. Promises, promises. So we're going to go, oh my goodness, is it already like 9:50? We're going to go for about 10-15 more minutes. We're going to continue my game. I was in Kakariko Village last, I guess. Well, I don't remember this, but here we go. Let's see. What was I doing in this village? Let's see. Can you hear my microphone? Can you hear what's going on in the game? Some items like bows. Alrighty, loading. That's good radio. I'm actually really enjoying this game. It's kind of an open sandbox universe. You get to play around it and solve some riddles and puzzles. It's got some good really well organized physics games going on. And I'm in this village. I'm dressed like a dapper champion. What is this over here? Oh, that sphere looks cool. Excuse me, Paya. Can I get past you to that sphere? Nope. Oh. That Sheikah heirloom has been guarded by our tribe for generations. I must request that you do not touch it. Even for an esteemed guest such as yourself, there are certain rules that must be respected. Okay. Alright, fine. Go up here. What's going on? Have I read this book already? Oh, Paya's diary. Let's not. What is this? Oh, it must be close to a shrine. Okay. Let's check. It's actually been a few days since I played this game, so adventure log. Destroy Ganon. Ganon's the bad guy in this game. It's like a big floating glowing dragon. Okay, Calamity Ganon sounds like a bad guy played by Clint Eastwood. There are 4 divine beasts. Got to figure that stuff out. Captured memories. I've got to find, there's certain images in this little Palm Pilot thing that I have. That's kind of dated. Let's say I have a magic iPhone that it's got some pictures in it, and I'm supposed to go to the locations where those pictures were taken to see if I can remember things about my past. Okay. Alright. Is this the same room? Yeah, this is the same room. Don't need to go there. Here's another book. Journal of Various Worries. Okay. Well, my wife left me today. Oh, that's sad. She said, what's more important, the Cuckoos or me? I guess this is the Bowmaster chooses the Cuckoos. Not Kelly Cuckoo. She's not in this game. She's in Big Bang Theory. A painter unfamiliar to any of us has arrived in the village. Like upon the hill is the shrines. Oh, good. Looks like we got a. It's Noti is hosting me now. I think this is my first time being hosted. That's dope. So the shrine is up on the hill. Let's go check it out. Oh, it's daytime. Look at that. It's up on one of those hills. So this is nice. Often it's just me playing games and talking about Judaism. Now we got some people who are interested in this game. My precious Cuckoos. Let's see. A shrine would actually be very handy for me teleporting back to this village. Haven't been this way before. Nope, that's not close to the shrine. Not that hill. Thank you very much. Oh. This way? Not that hill? This Link guy likes to climb stuff. That's going to take too long. Oh, there's a shrine. There we go. Woohoo! Back, you saw it. There we go. Right on. I have not been to that shrine before. That's my horse. His name's Mr. Ed. You get to name your horses. My daughter had no idea what I was talking about, but she never watched Nick at Night, so, Okay, climb up this thing. Come on, climb it. Climb the tree. I don't know if I have it in me to make it all the way up this mountain. We'll see, won't we? Oh, look, there's an apple. Alright, here we go. I think I could do it. I think I can. I think I can. And this game is about rock climbing. Oh, there's some clothes in the clothesline. Maybe I can get some free clothes out of there. And get me an apple. I'll tell you what, though. These shrines can be very frustrating. These are like the mini games inside Zelda, as you have to figure out how to solve a puzzle to get to something that happens in the shrine. Sometimes it gives you powers, sometimes it just gives you these little spheres that you collect for other powers. But what it does do is it creates teleport spots so you can move around the universe without having to ride your horse everywhere or walk. This game has a lot of cardio in it. Alright, let's try out the shrine a little bit, then we're gonna call it a Friday. Use the power to lift metallic objects. I wonder if there's metallic objects in this shrine. This is a new shrine for me. To you who sets foot in the shrine, I am Taloneg. I share with you stuff. Taloneg shrine. Okay, Taloneg. What's going on? Oh, there's a chest. Open. The Shield of the Mind's Eye. A small Shake-a-Made shield that's designed intended to decrease blind spots without sacrificing too much defense. Interesting. Your inventory is full. Alright, here we go. Time to dump some of my garbage. You accumulate a lot of junk in this game. Okay, I'm going to get rid of... What's my lamest shield? My Boko shield. Drop that. Later, Boko shield. Got you like the first time I played. Now I'm going to get the good shield. Boosh! Got the good shield. I'm going to swap it out. Yeah, let's go with that. Oh! Something's happening. Oh, great. Time to die. I've never had to fight somebody in this before. Use a side hop to avoid enemy attacks. This will create an opening that you can use to strike back. I don't know how to side hop. Oh, now I do. Target enemy, left, strafe, and jump. So target enemy, strafe, and jump. So, let me try this. Target enemy, strafe, and jump. Oh, neato. Target enemy, strafe, target, whoop. So, target enemy. Dang it, that's not what I wanted to do. I'm gonna put you guys, you're gonna go over here. So, target enemy, strafe, and jump. Neato, okay. Some of the chest over here. Might be something useful. Eightfold Blade, a single-edged sword, traditional forged using ancient technology. Alright, maybe I can dump some of this other junk. And, okay, what do I have? I think I'll trade a rusty halberd for it. Like I said, you pick up a lot of junk on the road. I do like those hammers. Nope, rusty halberd. Eightfold Blade! And I'm going to side hop. Okay, target enemy, strafe, and jump. Seems like a lot of steps. So let me equip my Eightfold Blade. So, target enemy, strafe, and jump. Target enemy, strafe, and jump. Okay, target enemy, strafe, and jump. Target enemy, strafe, and jump. And flurry rush. Okay, he doesn't really go anywhere. Oh, my Eightfold Blade is badly damaged. Alright, I'm gonna blow that guy up. Yeah, I'm gonna blow this guy up. Okay. Not really doing any damage to him, though. Let's try this. Whoop! Now I'm badly damaged. Alright, he's not going to damage you. He leans you how to do all the jumps. Oh, okay, this is like a jump tutorial. Cool. But in fact, he did in fact damage me. So I'm gonna throw this at him. Boop. Okay, let's see. I've already messed up my 8-fold blade. I'm gonna eat something. Oh, a meat skewer. You can damage him too. Okay, FYI, doubtful. It will be in mainstream news, but a temple was vandalized in Nebraska on Wednesday. Just read about it. Okay, great. I mean, I said that facetiously. Another temple damaged, vandalized. Okay. Oh, there goes my blade. Time to it's hammer time. Oops, I didn't mean to do that, but let's go with it. Threw it too hard. Let's see. Take out my hammer. Say, boom. Strafe. So, whoop. So, target. Oh, target. Side. Strafe. Target, side, and boop. I can't damage him. So what am I doing here? I've done the side hop. Okay. Targets. Nope. Keep hitting the wrong buttons. They should call the show Rabbi's Bad at Video Games. Dodge his attack. Oh, whoop. There's a nice thing. Okay, target. Keep hitting the... Getting overzealous. Okay, so... Target, side, and jump. Oh, so basically a few hits on him ruins my weapons. So this is a tutorial thing, so... Target. Target enemy. Okay. Target enemy, strafe. Target enemy, strafe, jump. What must I learn from you, master? Target enemy, side, and jump. Target enemy, side. Target enemy, side. Do a backflip to avoid. Okay, so this is a tutorial from the for the game. Great. Target enemy, backpedal, and jump. Okay, so I don't even need a weapon. I'm just going to break it on him. So target enemy, backpedal, and jump. Okay. Target enemy, backpedal, and jump. 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 Target enemy. I'm gonna slap him, I guess. Let's try a rusty halberd on you. Okay, if I dodge his attack, it'll get me through this. Okay, so, I'm taking my halberd. Target enemy. You can repel an attack if you parry with your shield at just the right time. Strike back in the opening you create. Ready, shield, and parry. Oh, man, dude. Hold on. It's my Rick parry. No, didn't mean to do that. Okay, so, equip shield. one-handed weapon for this. That's better. Come on. Perfect guard. Oh, parry. There we go. There goes a boomerang. I'm like running out of weapons to hit this guy with. Oh, perfect guard. Okay, that didn't work. Alright, I'm out of weapons. Hit him with a torch. I'm trying here. Build up your power, then release it to unleash a charge attack. Alright. Yes, need to time it. Okay, I think I got it. Build power, release. It's the same button. Oh, Hadouken! Guardian sword! Alright, I think I did it. Right on. Okay, excellent. Rabbis also can learn Legend of Zelda, Breath of the Wild. Okay. So, I have a Guardian sword. I'm going to equip that nonsense. Get some ancient, get some ancient springs. Ancient springs, those come in handy, I've heard. Doo-doo-doo. All right, thanks for your encouragement. It's Noity. Thanks for your encouragement and for hosting me. That's awesome. That's really generous of you. Thank you for that. So I'm going to open this chest. Maybe they'll give me another one of these shields. An opal. Oh, nice. It's all about perseverance and discipline. Good old P&D. Yeah, you're the first Rebbe in the world to be fighting robots with a torch. I don't know. There's a lot of Gollum stories like that. So I tell you, a couple of years ago, I was working in a synagogue in Burbank, and I had some wonderful students. My class was like 5th through 7th grade combined, and they found out that I do YouTube videos. And they're like, "You do YouTube videos? That's so weird." I'm like, "Yeah, why don't you help me out? What kind of video should I do?" And they said, like I said, what kind of videos do you watch on YouTube? And they said, gaming videos. I'm like, that seems ridiculous to me. Like, well, I get the concept, but it's like, who's going to watch me play video games? Well, you'd be surprised. At least like 8 or 9 people every Friday. But I figure, you know, being a rabbi, I got to teach them Torah along the way. So really glad to learn with everybody today. If you're just tuning in, this is the Jewcurious Show. We talk about Jewish stuff while playing video games, apparently, on Friday here. So I feel like I've accomplished something. I beat the training robot. I've gotten the Guardian sword and an okay shield, I guess, and which I was mostly badly damaged. And now I've got a power orb. So I'm going to exit to Kokomoko Village, or what, I can never remember, like Cocorico Village. And then we're going to call it a day. Thank you guys so much for the great questions you've asked today, for being here for me, for being here for each other. So we're going to continue this fun next Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific time. I'm going to go do some rabbi stuff. Got to prepare for services tonight. Visit somebody, take my daughter to a Jewish youth group retreat bus. And so really excited to learn with you today. Thank you for your great questions. And until next time, heroes, keep learning and peace.